He found the dog tied and engulfed in flames at the abandoned gas station, whimpering softly, bound tightly by the cruel hands that had betrayed him. Through choking smoke and blistering heat, the firefighter rushed forward, not to extinguish a fire, but to save a life. Even as the flames licked at his fur, the canine dog reached out, not in anger or fear, but with unwavering trust. This dog hadn't fought to escape. He'd fought to forgive. A former hero of war, discarded and forgotten, yet still believing humanity deserved another chance. And in the moments after the fire died, something changed. A man haunted by his past found redemption. A wounded soldier rediscovered hope, and a town scarred by tragedy began to heal. But this isn't just a story about a dog, it's about courage, forgiveness, and how one act of compassion can ignite a brighter future. Before we begin, tap the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another story that might just restore your faith in people and yourself. The wind swept mercilessly through the rugged, snow-covered streets of Cotton Ridge, Wyoming, whispering harsh reminders of the mountain town's unforgiving winters. Tonight, the world was draped in shades of icy blues and silvers beneath a cloudless sky dotted with stars that seemed too distant, too cold to offer comfort. A thin veil of frost crept steadily over abandoned cars and darkened shop windows, each crystallized surface reflecting the dim glow of occasional street lamps, barely able to penetrate the gloom. At the far edge of town, a modest building stood resilient against the chill, its bright red doors closed but ready. This was Cotton Ridge Fire Station Number 5, home base to a small band of firefighters, each battling more than just flames in their private lives. Inside, Elliot Mercer sat at the long communal table, fingers clenched around a cooling cup of coffee, its bitterness familiar and oddly comforting. Elliot was tall and lean, with broad shoulders and a soldier's rigid posture. His jawline was sharp, etched further by a short, rugged beard that mirrored the weariness in his steel blue eyes. Though just 34, strands of silver already threaded through his dark hair, evidence of sleepless nights and hidden traumas. Elliot wasn't the type who laughed easily or engaged in idle banter. Quiet, serious, and fiercely reserved, he carried himself like a man who feared that any misstep might break an invisible line he'd long walked. He was known to others at the station as capable, yet distant, and the younger firefighters whispered among themselves about his tours in the Marines, about the men he had lost. Elliot knew about their whispers, of course, how could he not? But none of them understood. None of them knew Riley, the brother-in-arms he'd let slip away in the smoke-filled chaos of Afghanistan, the ghost who haunted every dream and waking moment since. The sudden wail of the emergency alarm tore Elliot from his brooding thoughts. He pushed his chair back roughly, instinct overriding contemplation, adrenaline already pulsing through him as he ran toward the fire engine. The dispatcher's voice cracked through the station's loudspeaker, clear and urgent. All units respond, structure fire reported at the old gas station off Mill Road. Flames reported visible from Highway 17. Possible hazardous materials on site. Elliot slid swiftly into his protective gear, his movements efficient and precise, practiced 1,000 times over. He climbed into the cab of the fire engine, gripping the wheel tightly. Beside him, Kyle Jennings, a rookie firefighter barely 22, face pale and tense, buckled himself in nervously. Kyle was youthful and wiry, sandy hair perpetually tousled, eyes wide with both fear and determination. Elliot had noticed Kyle watching him closely over the past few weeks, eager for approval yet cautious of his gruff demeanor. He liked the kid well enough, but maintained distance. Another painful loss was a risk Elliot vowed never to take again. The engine's sirens sliced through the night, scattering the quiet and waking Cotton Ridge from its uneasy sleep. Elliot drove swiftly down icy roads, headlights cutting into the darkness like blades. The old gas station had stood empty for over a decade, a ghost of prosperity long forgotten. Now, as they drew closer, flames leapt fiercely into the night sky, devouring its aged timbers and rusted metal with terrifying appetite. Elliot's heart quickened, hands gripping the wheel tighter as memories of explosions, smoke, and burning desert sands threatened to surface. "Get the hoses ready," Elliot barked sharply as he brought the engine to a stop at the edge of the lot, his commanding voice cutting through the chaos and anchoring his mind back into the present. As he jumped from the cab, heat slapped his face, smoke clawed at his lungs, and he felt the world spin momentarily around him, a dizzying echo of past terrors. Elliot steadied himself, forcing the memories down with practiced control. He had a job to do, and then he saw it. Through the flickering curtain of flame, beneath the old station's crumbling awning, a shape thrashed helplessly against chains that glinted wickedly in firelight. Elliot squinted, pulse quickening. The shape was dark, desperate, and alive. A dog. A German shepherd, powerful and muscular despite its thin frame, fur matted with filth, and now aflame in patches. Its ears pressed flat, eyes wide with panic and suffering. The animal strained toward Elliot, straining with desperate strength against the chain holding it captive. It wasn't snarling, wasn't growling. Instead, its body trembled with pain, yet its eyes held no malice, only an urgent, aching plea. Without hesitation, Elliot broke into a sprint toward the burning creature. "Mercer, wait!" Kyle shouted from behind. But Elliot heard nothing beyond the pounding of his own heart. Heat blistered his cheeks, sparks and embers swirling around him as he closed the distance between himself and the dog. His throat tightened, breath burning in his chest, not just from the smoke, but from something deeper, buried beneath layers of grief and regret. The dog cried softly, not aggressive, just pleading. Elliot dropped to his knees, snow and ashes grinding into his gear, and seized the chains. They burned his fingers, scorching through gloves as he wrestled desperately to free the animal. Flames danced closer, greedily inching toward fuel tanks abandoned years before. Every second counted. "Come on, boy," Elliot rasped, voice strained but steady. "I'm here. Just hold on." With a final furious tug, the chain broke loose. Elliot bundled the injured animal tightly in his heavy firefighter's coat, smothering flames and feeling the tremors of agony beneath his fingers. The dog did not bite, did not struggle, only whimpered softly and pressed its head against Elliot's chest, trusting completely, desperately, despite the cruelty it had suffered. The structure groaned ominously, flames roaring louder. Elliot forced himself to rise, gripping the injured dog protectively, and staggered away from the inferno, back toward the fire engine. Kyle was waiting, eyes wide and fearful, but Elliot barely noticed, blinded by adrenaline and compassion intertwined. He placed the trembling animal gently onto the ground, kneeling beside it, breath ragged, heart hammering. Elliot's gaze met the dog's amber eyes, intelligent despite its agony, eyes full of pain, yet also gratitude for salvation offered without hesitation. And something within Elliot shifted, cracked open slightly, a fracture letting in both sorrow and hope. He could not know then how deeply this moment would carve itself into his life. But looking into those trusting, wounded eyes, Elliot felt for the first time in years that perhaps he was capable of redemption after all. Snow began to drift lazily again from the velvet black sky, gently dusting soot-streaked gear, firefighters bustling around them, and the still smoldering station. Elliot knelt silently beside the dog, softly running a hand through singed fur, steadying both the creature and himself against the cold, indifferent night. He did not see the shadows watching from beyond the burning wreckage, did not notice the figure turning swiftly to disappear among the trees. Tonight, Elliot Mercer only knew one truth clearly: he had saved a life. What he could not yet see was how profoundly that life was about to save him. The dawn arrived in Cotton Ridge, casting pale streaks of sunlight over streets glistening with fresh snow, as though nature itself had attempted to erase last night's chaos. Elliot Mercer had not slept. Exhaustion lingered heavily behind his eyes, each blink reminding him of flames and the heart-wrenching cries of the injured animal he had saved. Sitting in the waiting area of Cotton Ridge Animal Clinic, he rubbed his scarred knuckles absently, gaze fixed blankly upon the white linoleum tiles. The clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic, mingled with animal fur and the warm aroma of coffee brewing somewhere unseen, a strange comfort amid lingering anxieties. From down the hallway, soft footsteps approached. Elliot raised his eyes as Dr. Joanne Keller emerged, her presence calm yet undeniably authoritative. Joanne was in her early 40s, tall and slender, her honey blonde hair pulled into a neat ponytail that revealed faint streaks of premature gray. Behind thin wireframe glasses, her eyes, a calm shade of green, reflected a depth of compassion born from years spent tending wounded animals. Joanne rarely raised her voice, but beneath that serene exterior lay a firmness that quietly commanded respect from both animals and humans alike. Elliot," she said softly, her voice gentle yet professional. "He's stable now. You got him here just in time." She paused, eyeing Elliot's clenched hands before continuing gently. "You did well." Elliot nodded slowly, feeling a strange relief flood him at her words, though he didn't let it show on his face. "How bad is it?" he asked, voice barely audible. Joanne exhaled softly, her expression solemn. "Extensive burns along his back and hindquarters. Some nerve damage, but we can manage that. The real concern was infection, but we got ahead of it. He's strong, resilient." Her lips curved faintly in a reassuring smile. "He's a fighter." "Did you find anything else?" Elliot asked, uncertain why the question felt so urgent. Joanne hesitated briefly, then nodded. "Yes, something unusual. A military ID tattoo behind his ear, K9 Bravo 91. He's a former Army dog, Elliot. Probably retired and then discarded." The words hit Elliot with a force that nearly stole his breath. Bravo 91. He recognized the code instantly, an echo from his own past. The dog lying injured in Joanne's operating room had once served, once protected lives just as Elliot had. Another veteran, another soul betrayed. "Can I see him?" Elliot finally asked, voice tight. Joanne nodded gently, guiding him down the sterile corridor and into a quiet recovery room bathed in muted morning light. The German shepherd lay motionless on a padded table, wrapped delicately in white bandages. An IV dripped slowly beside him, the rhythmic beep of monitoring equipment filling the silence. His eyes fluttered open as Elliot approached, dark amber pools, dulled by pain, yet still holding quiet strength and surprising warmth. "Hey, soldier," Elliot murmured softly, fingers hovering just above the dog's singed fur. He hesitated, then carefully rested his palm gently against the animal's shoulder, feeling the faint, reassuring rise and fall of steady breathing beneath the bandages. The dog's ears twitched weakly, eyes watching Elliot with wary gratitude. "You've both seen things," Joanne observed quietly from the doorway, watching the moment unfold, careful not to intrude. A soft knock interrupted the quiet, pulling Elliot back to reality. He glanced toward the doorway, surprised to see Deputy Carter Jennings, a stocky, middle-aged officer with a neatly trimmed salt-and-pepper beard and weathered features etched by long winters and tough cases. Jennings carried a plastic evidence bag in his gloved hand, his expression thoughtful. "Mercer," Jennings greeted him gruffly, nodding politely to Joanne before turning back to Elliot. "I thought you'd want to see this." He held up the bag containing a charred fragment of paper, its edges burnt black, the handwriting smudged yet legible. Elliot peered closer, reading aloud quietly. "I can't do this anymore. Forgive me." Jennings shifted uncomfortably, clearly troubled by the mystery. "We combed the area thoroughly. No footprints, no tire tracks. Whoever left that dog in the fire vanished without a trace, except for this note." Elliot felt a strange tightening in his chest, an ache deeper than anger. Someone had abandoned this animal, set fire to him, yet begged forgiveness. It made no sense, yet stirred something unsettling within him, a faint echo of guilt from his own past. He met Jennings's eyes briefly, nodding his appreciation. "Let me know if anything else turns up." As Jennings departed, Joanne moved beside Elliot, observing his troubled expression carefully. "You all right?" Elliot hesitated, jaw tightening slightly. "I don't know. Just ghosts, I guess." Joanne didn't press further, giving him space he silently appreciated. Instead, she gently rested a hand briefly on his shoulder. "We all have our ghosts, Elliot. Don't carry them alone forever." Outside, the sky brightened into full morning, warming the clinic windows and painting golden patterns across the floor. Elliot's phone vibrated suddenly in his pocket, startling him from his thoughts. He glanced at the screen, stomach tightening again. Lena. It had been 5 years since Elliot last spoke to his sister, Lena Mercer, a petite, dark-haired woman 10 years his junior, whose gentle, cheerful demeanor had once brought warmth to their family home. He remembered her eyes vividly, bright hazel reflecting both laughter and tears. Their relationship fractured when Elliot, overwhelmed by his PTSD, failed to attend their father's funeral, severing ties he believed irreparable. Now Lena's name glowed insistently on his phone screen. Heart thudding nervously, Elliot finally answered. "Hello, Lena." Silence stretched between them before Lena's soft voice, slightly trembling, broke through. "Elliot, it's been a long time." He swallowed hard, guilt thickening his voice. "Too long. I'm sorry. About everything." Lena paused, clearly moved by his rare vulnerability. "I know, Elliot. I've missed you. And I need you in my life again. I'm pregnant, due soon. I want my baby to know its uncle." The revelation stunned him into deeper silence. He imagined Lena's warm, hopeful smile, the smile he'd once shattered, and knew instantly he wanted to fix things. For Lena, for himself, for Riley, whose absence still haunted him. "I'll be there," he finally said, voice firm despite emotion thickening his throat. "Whatever you need, Lena. I'm here now." As he ended the call, Elliot looked down again at Bravo 91, still resting quietly beneath careful bandages. The dog's eyes now closed in sleep, breathing evenly, unaware of the wounds healing slowly beneath his scars. "We're both healing," Elliot murmured softly to the sleeping animal. "Maybe together, we'll get there." He stepped from the recovery room back into the morning sun, where light spilled through windows in quiet reassurance. Joanne Keller stood in the hallway, offering a gentle, knowing smile as Elliot walked past. It felt like hope, fragile and cautious, but undeniably real. 2 days had passed since Elliot's world had started changing with the fire at the abandoned gas station. The storm clouds looming over Cotton Ridge seemed to match the turmoil inside him. Dark gray skies pressed low, heavy with the threat of snowfall, the air so sharp it felt like glass shards against his skin. Elliot sat in his modest apartment, dim morning light barely filtering through the blinds, his hands trembling faintly around a thick folder of documents sprawled across his kitchen table. Each page represented a piece of Bravo 91's past pieces Elliot now felt compelled to solve. He flipped through the file Joanne had helped him access, military records and faded photographs, until one name leaped off the page, tightening his chest. "Officer Marcus Hale," Elliot whispered aloud, testing the sound of it as though speaking the name could conjure the man back from the dead. Marcus Hale had been Bravo 91's handler in Afghanistan, a decorated soldier until a final disastrous mission erased his career and, eventually, his existence. He had disappeared after his discharge, declared missing. Rumors said he'd suffered a psychological breakdown, but nothing official confirmed it. Marcus Hale stared at Elliot from a worn photograph, dark hair cropped short, eyes focused and sharp, jaw squared with determination. Elliot remembered him faintly from his own service days, known mostly by reputation, a calm, fearless leader whose voice had been steady even under enemy fire. It was unsettling to reconcile that memory with the anonymous note found at the gas station and the burnt scars along Bravo's body. Could Marcus truly have fallen so far? Elliot's reverie shattered abruptly when his phone buzzed, Lena's name glowing urgently on the screen once again. He answered quickly this time, a small gesture toward repairing their fractured relationship. "Elliot," Lena's voice was hesitant but hopeful. "Thanks for answering again." "Lena," Elliot spoke gently, leaning back in his chair. "You don't have to thank me. How are you feeling?" "Tired," she laughed softly, a sound Elliot had forgotten how much he missed. "But better knowing you're around." "Listen, Elliot, I know this is sudden, but I've been thinking about the baby. About you." Elliot remained silent, unsure where Lena was going but sensing something significant. "I want you to be part of this child's life," she continued, voice suddenly thick with emotion. "I want you to be there, Elliot, not just occasionally, but always, as their godfather. You're my only family left, and this baby deserves to have an uncle." His throat tightened painfully, caught between gratitude and guilt. I'm honored, Lena. But are you sure? You know how broken I've been." "You're not broken," Lena interrupted, voice firm yet gentle. "You're hurt. And hurt heals when you stop running. Face your past, Elliot. Do it for this child. Do it for yourself." After the call ended, Elliot sat quietly, Lena's words echoing through him. Face your past. That meant confronting the ghosts he'd tried so desperately to bury: Marcus Hale, Bravo 91, Riley, each connected by invisible threads, pulling him inevitably toward resolution. Driven by new resolve, Elliot grabbed his jacket and headed out into the cold, determined to follow the fragile lead he'd found on Marcus. His first stop was the Veteran Center downtown, a squat brick building nestled among older storefronts. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead, the air tinged with the faint scent of coffee and polished linoleum. Behind the reception desk sat Maggie Carlyle, a woman in her 60s with neatly coiffed silver hair and blue eyes that softened warmly when she recognized Elliot. Maggie had worked at the center for nearly 2 decades, motherly and protective, dedicated to the veterans she saw daily. She greeted Elliot with her usual gentle nod, motioning him over. "Elliot Mercer?" Maggie said affectionately, adjusting her purple-framed glasses. "Haven't seen you here in months." "Yeah, it's been a while," Elliot admitted quietly. "Maggie, I need your help. I'm looking for someone, Marcus Hale." Maggie's expression shifted, surprise briefly flickering across her face before settling into cautious sympathy. "Marcus Hale? Yes, he came through here briefly. A few months back. He wasn't well, Elliot. Withdrawn, haunted like many who walk through these doors. Then one day he just vanished." "Did he mention anywhere specific? A place he'd go?" Elliot asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Maggie hesitated, then lowered her voice confidentially. "There was a cabin, an old hunting lodge his family owned years ago, near Red Pine Lake. He mentioned it once, said it reminded him of better days, simpler times." Thanking her quickly, Elliot stepped back into the bitter air, snow now beginning to drift gently down from heavy clouds above. The drive out toward Red Pine Lake was lonely, the road narrow and winding through dense stands of evergreens now heavily dusted white. His truck bumped along the rutted path until finally, tucked among towering pines, he saw it, the abandoned hunting lodge, its roof sagging under decades of weather, windows broken or boarded shut. Smoke curled thinly from a stone chimney, a faint sign of life amid desolation. Elliot approached carefully, boots crunching through snow until he reached the front porch. "Marcus," he called firmly, voice echoing slightly through the stillness. The lodge door creaked open slowly, revealing Marcus Hale himself, tall but noticeably thin, eyes sunken, beard unkempt, a shadow of the strong soldier Elliot once remembered. Marcus studied Elliot cautiously, recognition gradually dawning behind weary eyes. "Elliot Mercer," Marcus rasped softly, voice hoarse from disuse. "Never thought I'd see you again." "Neither did I," Elliot replied evenly. "Marcus, I know about Bravo 91, about the fire. You left him there. Why?" Marcus flinched visibly, pain flickering in his hollow eyes. "It wasn't supposed to be him. It was me I tried to burn. Bravo, he tried to stop me. Got gasoline spilled on himself trying to protect me. I couldn't save him. I panicked. Left him for dead, thinking he'd never forgive me." Elliot felt his anger soften into profound sorrow. He saw himself mirrored in Marcus, both haunted, broken soldiers trapped by their pasts. "Bravo survived," Elliot finally said, voice softer now. "He's hurt badly, Marcus, but he survived, and he needs answers. You both deserve peace." Marcus sagged visibly against the doorframe, tears forming for the first time in years. "Peace? I haven't known peace since I left him there. Since Afghanistan, I've been lost." Elliot stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on Marcus's trembling shoulder. "Then come back. Stop running. For Bravo. For yourself." Marcus met Elliot's steady gaze, a moment suspended heavily between them before he nodded slowly. "All right, Elliot. I'll come." As they walked back toward Elliot's truck, snowflakes drifted lazily around them, a silent promise of renewal amid sorrow. Elliot knew this wasn't the end of their journey, only the beginning of healing for Marcus, Bravo, Lena's child, and himself. The storm had lifted overnight, leaving behind a silent world blanketed in fresh snow, glittering faintly under a pale morning sun. Elliot Mercer's old pickup truck rumbled slowly along the deserted back road leading out of Cotton Ridge. Beside him, Marcus Hale sat quietly, gaze vacant, shoulders slumped beneath a worn army jacket. Marcus had once been a commanding figure, tall and robust. Now he was thin, with hollow cheeks shadowed by an untidy beard, deep-set eyes that flickered restlessly, haunted by unseen ghosts. He had aged beyond his 42 years, worn down by loss and regret. Elliot kept glancing at him, sensing Marcus's unease. "We'll get through this," Elliot said gently, breaking the silence. Marcus offered no reply, only a subtle nod as he continued staring blankly at the passing scenery. Elliot focused back on the road ahead, driving toward the old warehouse at the edge of town where Marcus had been hiding. The warehouse was a relic of Cotton Ridge's forgotten industrial past, a massive structure of rusted steel and faded brick, crumbling at the edges, windows shattered or boarded. Elliot parked outside, and Marcus slowly stepped out, shivering in the biting cold. Elliot followed, glancing warily at the desolation surrounding them. Inside the building, dim sunlight penetrated holes in the ceiling, illuminating scattered debris and empty boxes. Marcus led Elliot through cluttered corridors toward a small makeshift room at the back. "I've been staying here," Marcus whispered hoarsely, almost embarrassed. A threadbare mattress lay on the concrete floor, surrounded by discarded food wrappers, empty bottles, and scraps of faded photographs scattered haphazardly. Elliot's gaze fell upon one picture, yellowed and torn, showing a younger Marcus smiling warmly beside a woman. "Your wife?" Elliot asked softly. Marcus nodded stiffly, eyes suddenly glistening. "Caroline," he whispered, voice breaking. "Lost her to cancer 3 years ago after the army kicked me out. I spiraled, Elliot drinking, nightmares, couldn't hold a job. I was angry at the world, mostly angry at myself." Elliot remained silent, listening carefully. Marcus continued, shoulders trembling. "Bravo found me again. I don't know how, but he showed up one night, out of nowhere. Stayed with me for weeks. He knew me, Elliot. He forgave me. I didn't deserve it." Elliot watched Marcus closely, understanding deeply the pain Marcus carried. Marcus's voice dropped to barely audible whispers. "That night at the gas station, it wasn't supposed to be him. It was me I intended to end. But Bravo sensed it, tried to knock the gasoline can from my hand. It spilled all over him. I panicked, dropped the match. I tried to help him, but the flames. It was my fault, all mine." Marcus sank heavily onto the mattress, burying his face into his scarred hands. Elliot stepped closer, crouching beside him. "Marcus, listen." "Marcus, you did wrong, but this can't be the end of your story. You owe it to Bravo, to yourself, to make things right." Marcus raised his head slowly, tears streaming openly down his weary face. "How, Elliot? How can I possibly fix this?" "By facing it," Elliot answered firmly. "We start by getting you both help." As they stood again, preparing to leave, Elliot's phone buzzed. The name Joanne Keller flashed urgently on the screen. "Joanne?" Elliot answered, voice wary. "Elliot, you need to come quickly." Joanne spoke swiftly, her voice anxious yet controlled. "Bravo's condition is suddenly deteriorating. We need you here, now." Heart racing, Elliot turned to Marcus. "We have to go. Bravo needs us." Marcus looked momentarily terrified, but determination replaced fear. "Let's go," he said, voice trembling with urgency. Back in Cotton Ridge, Joanne Keller paced anxiously inside the clinic, her calm demeanor strained. Her assistant, Ben Thompson, a young veterinary intern in his late 20s, short sandy hair, glasses slipping down his nose, perpetually shy but caring, stood nervously nearby, eyes wide with concern. When Elliot and Marcus burst through the clinic door, Joanne immediately led them toward Bravo's room. The German Shepherd lay panting weakly on the table, eyes clouded with pain, breaths shallow. Marcus froze in the doorway, horror etched across his face. "My God, Bravo," Marcus whispered hoarsely, stepping closer. Bravo's ears twitched slightly at Marcus's voice, tail thumping once weakly against the table. Joanne explained quickly. "He developed an infection overnight. Antibiotics aren't working effectively. He's losing strength." Marcus reached out slowly, gently touching Bravo's fur. "I'm so sorry, buddy," he choked out softly. Bravo's eyes opened slightly wider, a low whine escaping as if trying to comfort Marcus, even now. Elliot placed a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder. "We're not losing him. Bravo's strong, but we need you strong too." Marcus nodded slowly, determination returning to his gaze. "What can we do?" Joanne exhaled slowly, glancing between Marcus and Elliot. "We need stronger antibiotics, fluids, careful monitoring, and Bravo needs your presence, Marcus. Animals respond to emotional bonds, especially trauma survivors like Bravo. Then I stay," Marcus said firmly, pulling a chair close to the table. Elliot watched as Marcus took Bravo's paw gently into his shaking hand, murmuring quietly to the dog. Joanne motioned Elliot aside briefly. "Elliot, Marcus needs serious help too. He's unstable. This could help him heal, but he must see professionals. What's your plan?" Elliot hesitated, knowing clearly the crossroads he faced. Turning Marcus over to authorities risked losing the fragile trust he'd rebuilt. Not reporting could have consequences. Yet Marcus and Bravo needed healing, not punishment. Finally, Elliot spoke carefully. "I'll take Marcus to the Veteran Rehabilitation Center outside Cotton Ridge. They handle cases like his discreetly. He needs treatment, not jail." Joanne studied Elliot thoughtfully, then nodded approvingly. "All right, Elliot. I trust your judgment." Elliot returned to Marcus's side, seeing newfound purpose returning to Marcus's eyes. "Marcus," Elliot spoke gently, "I won't report what happened yet, but you must agree to treatment at the Veterans Rehab Center. It's your best chance." Marcus exhaled deeply, nodding solemnly. "I'll go, Elliot. I owe it to Bravo and Caroline, to myself. I won't run anymore." Outside, the skies cleared slightly, winter sunlight filtering gently through the windows. Elliot felt a fragile hope settle warmly inside him. Hope for Bravo, Marcus, Lena's child, and for himself. Marcus sat quietly beside Bravo, the bond between them rekindling even amidst pain. Elliot stepped back, allowing himself a quiet moment of relief. They weren't healed yet, far from it, but this was a start. They were finally facing the ghosts they'd long fled, together. As he watched Marcus softly speak to Bravo, the wounded dog's breathing slowly steadied, a symbol of resilience, forgiveness, and perhaps redemption. The rehabilitation center outside Cotton Ridge sat quietly nestled among snowy hills and dense stands of evergreens. Its low brick buildings and carefully manicured grounds presented a comforting, secluded haven for veterans grappling with unseen wounds. Morning had arrived with gentler weather, the skies finally clear, the air crisp but no longer biting. Elliot Mercer walked purposefully along the main corridor, his boots echoing softly on polished floors. Today his steps felt lighter, buoyed by a fragile yet growing hope. Bravo 91 had survived surgery, but not without cost. Elliot still felt the ache in his chest, recalling the moment Dr. Joanne Keller had explained they had no choice but to amputate Bravo's severely infected hind leg. Joanne had been gentle, knowing the news would strike Elliot deeply, yet he remembered feeling momentarily helpless, as though he had failed again. Only later, sitting beside Bravo's bed, stroking his fur, seeing the dog's calm and forgiving eyes staring back, did Elliot understand that sometimes survival required sacrifices. Bravo was awake when Elliot entered the small recovery room, his tail immediately thumping against the cushioned table, despite visible exhaustion. Marcus Hale sat quietly beside him, appearing calmer than Elliot had seen since they'd reunited. Marcus's demeanor had shifted in recent days. His dark eyes, once hollow, now showed glimmers of strength returning. His beard was neatly trimmed, his clothing clean and orderly, small gestures signaling his quiet fight toward redemption. Marcus had become dedicated to Bravo's recovery, spending countless hours at the dog's side, quietly speaking words Elliot couldn't always hear clearly, but sensed were promises, apologies, and gratitude. Elliot paused, watching the two companions carefully. Marcus reached out, gently touching Bravo's head, fingers tenderly brushing fur as he murmured softly. Bravo's ears perked forward attentively, tail wagging faintly each time Marcus spoke. Elliot's heart tightened at their quiet bond, witnessing loyalty and forgiveness transcending even the harshest scars. As Elliot approached, Marcus turned slightly, offering a small, hesitant smile. "Morning, Elliot," Marcus said softly, his voice steady but still tentative. "Bravo's improving. He's adapting quickly." Elliot nodded warmly, placing a reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. "He's tough, just like you. How are you feeling today?" Marcus exhaled deeply, glancing briefly at Bravo before meeting Elliot's gaze. "Better, clearer. Being here, helping Bravo, it makes things feel possible again. But there's something else, Elliot. Something I need you to know." Marcus handed Elliot a neatly folded piece of paper, his expression earnest. "I wrote this last night. I've thought long and hard, and I need to face my actions. You gave me the strength, Elliot, by believing I still have worth." Elliot unfolded the letter carefully, reading Marcus's careful handwriting, the sincerity raw and honest in each line. Marcus's words explained everything: the fire, Bravo's injuries, his deep remorse, and his decision to willingly surrender to authorities. The letter concluded simply, "Thank you, Elliot, for seeing hope in a broken man. You've given me the courage to seek forgiveness. For the first time in years, I see light ahead." Elliot folded the letter quietly, emotions swirling through him. He felt pride and sadness intertwined, but above all, relief. Marcus had chosen accountability. Redemption was finally possible. "You're brave, Marcus," Elliot said firmly, "and this is exactly what real courage looks like." Marcus lowered his gaze modestly, nodding quietly. Elliot sensed Marcus's vulnerability, yet there was newfound dignity in the man who'd once seemed beyond help. "There's something else, Marcus," Elliot began gently. "I've had an idea, one inspired by Bravo and you, a program to help other veterans like us. I call it K9 Companions. Dogs like Bravo, veterans like you working together to heal invisible wounds." Marcus's eyes widened slightly, hope flickering warmly in his expression. "It sounds perfect, Elliot. Dogs saved me once before and again now. They understand us in ways people sometimes can't." Elliot smiled faintly, knowing Marcus was right. Bravo had taught them both lessons about trust, resilience, and unconditional forgiveness. "Then let's make it happen," Elliot declared confidently. "Together." Later that afternoon, Elliot visited Lena at her small home near Cotton Ridge's edge. Lena was nearing her due date, and her petite frame showed clearly beneath her cozy sweater. Her dark hair was loosely tied back, her face radiant despite evident fatigue. Lena had always been strong yet gentle, but motherhood seemed to heighten both qualities. Elliot felt protective around her, aware now more than ever how deeply he wanted to honor her trust. "Elliot," Lena greeted him warmly, embracing him gently. "You look different, stronger, calmer." He smiled softly, appreciating Lena's intuition. "I feel different. Marcus is making progress. Bravo, too. Things are finally healing, Lena. And I've started something new, something meaningful." He explained the K9 Companions initiative, seeing Lena's approval clearly in her eyes. "That's wonderful," she said proudly, squeezing his hand gently. "You're doing exactly what Dad would have wanted. He'd be proud." The mention of their father no longer stung. Instead, Elliot felt quiet gratitude. Lena's words were validation he'd long denied himself. "Thank you, Lena," he whispered softly, "for believing I could change. I promise I'll be the uncle your child deserves." She smiled warmly, eyes glistening with emotion. "I always believed in you, Elliot. It was just you who had to see it." Later that night, Elliot returned to the rehabilitation center, stepping quietly into Bravo's room again. The dog was sleeping peacefully, bandaged stump visible yet dignified in repose. Marcus sat beside Bravo's bed, quietly reading a book on canine therapy Joanne had recommended. He glanced up as Elliot entered, smiling softly. "He finally fell asleep," Marcus whispered. "I think he's going to be okay." Elliot nodded gently, watching Bravo sleep. The dog's steady breathing seemed like a quiet promise that even after profound pain, healing was possible. Elliot felt lighter, clearer. Marcus's letter, Lena's trust, and Bravo's resilience intertwined into something powerful. He realized, standing quietly beside Marcus, that he too had been forgiven, not just by Lena or Marcus or even Bravo, but finally by himself. Marcus set aside his book, turning to Elliot. "I won't run again," Marcus said firmly. "I owe Bravo that, and myself too." Elliot met Marcus's gaze directly, seeing the sincerity and strength returning fully to his friend's eyes. "We'll do it together," Elliot promised. "This vow we keep." Bravo stirred slightly, ears twitching gently at the familiar voices. Without waking fully, his tail softly wagged once, a quiet affirmation that loyalty, forgiveness, and hope endured even amidst scars and sacrifice. Outside, stars glittered softly above snow-covered grounds, the quiet night promising a peaceful dawn. For Elliot, Marcus, Bravo, and Lena, the flames of past tragedy had begun transforming into something profound, a future built on trust, courage, and new beginnings. Cotton Ridge woke early beneath a sky painted with pastel shades of dawn, hues of lavender and soft pink washing gently over the snow-covered mountains. Despite the cold, a sense of anticipation permeated the air, bringing warmth to hearts long burdened by grief and loss. At the heart of this anticipation was the community center, nestled at the foot of a gentle hillside, decorated modestly with banners announcing the launch of the K-9 Companions program. Chairs had been carefully arranged in neat rows, now filling quickly with veterans, their families, and townspeople, each face reflecting quiet pride and hopefulness. Today was more than just a ceremony. It was a celebration of survival, trust, and the quiet bravery found in second chances. Standing quietly near the side of the stage was Elliot Mercer, his hands steady, though his heart beat quickly. Beside him sat Ash, the German shepherd formerly known as Bravo 91. Ash's fur had regained some luster, though silvery scars now marked his strong frame, permanent reminders of the sacrifices he had made. 3 legs remained, yet Ash held himself with a quiet dignity and courage, his dark amber eyes calm and wise beyond mere canine understanding. Today, a polished silver badge gleamed proudly on his new collar, symbolizing hope reborn from pain. Elliot kneeled briefly beside Ash, gently stroking his head, sharing a quiet moment before stepping onto the stage. The gathered crowd fell respectfully silent as Elliot approached the microphone. He took a slow breath, surveying familiar faces in the audience. Dr. Joanne Keller offered an encouraging smile. Deputy Carter Jennings gave a nod of respectful acknowledgement, and even Maggie Carlisle from the Veterans Center waved softly. Elliot's eyes finally rested upon Lena, seated near the front, cradling her newborn son, Thomas, named after their late father. Lena's radiant smile filled Elliot with warmth, reassurance, and determination. "Good morning, Cotton Ridge," Elliot began, voice clear and resonant. "We are here today not just to celebrate a new beginning, but also to honor resilience, forgiveness, and hope. A few weeks ago, I found Ash in circumstances too painful to recount, yet his strength, trust, and willingness to forgive have reminded me of what truly matters in our lives. He taught me that sometimes our greatest courage emerges from our deepest wounds." Elliot's gaze shifted momentarily to Marcus Hale, who sat quietly at the far side of the stage under gentle surveillance by 2 state officers. Marcus appeared solemn yet dignified, neatly dressed, his eyes steady and clear despite the gravity of his situation. Elliot continued, voice filled with quiet emotion. "Ash's journey has helped another wounded soul find courage, Marcus Hale. Marcus made mistakes, but he's also shown remarkable bravery by choosing to confront his past and take responsibility. Today, we honor that courage." At Elliot's subtle signal, Ash rose slowly on his 3 legs, determined yet graceful. He limped forward, each step careful but unwavering, approaching Marcus deliberately, quietly. Marcus's eyes softened as Ash reached his side, the dog gently pressing his head against Marcus's hand, silently communicating forgiveness and loyalty. A collective breath seemed held by the crowd, touched deeply by the purity of this moment. No applause erupted immediately. Instead, a quiet hush of reverence settled, gentle as snowflakes drifting through winter pines. After a long moment, applause gradually began, soft and respectful at first, growing steadily until the quiet hall resonated warmly with acknowledgement. Marcus gently stroked Ash's head, gratitude and humility evident in his quiet, tear-filled eyes. When Elliot stepped down from the stage, Lena approached him, her eyes glistening softly. "That was beautiful, Elliot," she whispered gently, hugging him briefly. "Dad would have loved this." Elliot nodded, his heart full yet tranquil. "Thanks, Lena. How's Thomas?" "Perfect," Lena said softly, smiling warmly down at the sleeping infant. "He's lucky to have an uncle who can teach him what strength really means." Elliot smiled gratefully, savoring the peace in Lena's words. Before he could reply, his phone vibrated insistently in his pocket. He excused himself politely, stepping into a quiet hallway to answer. The caller ID was unfamiliar, a government number he didn't recognize. "Elliot Mercer speaking," he answered cautiously. "Mr. Mercer, this is Elaine Winters from the Office of Veterans Affairs," said the voice on the other end, smooth, authoritative, yet warm. "We've heard extraordinary things about your K-9 Companions initiative. Your story and ashes have moved many people at high levels of state government. Elliot's pulse quickened slightly, anticipation rising within him. Thank you, Ms. Winters. We're doing our best to help veterans heal. Exactly why I'm calling, Elaine continued with genuine enthusiasm. We'd like to pilot your program statewide, expanding it to veterans facilities throughout Wyoming immediately. With your leadership and Ash's symbolic presence, we believe this could help countless men, women, and service dogs find healing together. Elliot was momentarily speechless, absorbing the enormity of the offer. His quiet project, born from compassion and desperation, now promised real hope statewide. I don't know what to say, he finally replied, sincerity evident. I'd be honored. Ash would too. Excellent, Elaine confirmed warmly. We'll be in touch soon to formalize everything. Congratulations, Elliot. Your courage and ashes have inspired us all. As Elliot ended the call, a profound sense of purpose flooded him. He returned to the main hall, finding Ash resting quietly near Lena and Thomas, the dog gently watching over the sleeping child. Marcus had risen slowly, preparing to leave with the officers, pausing briefly to shake Elliot's hand. Thank you, Elliot, Marcus said softly, voice steady with newfound resolve. For believing when no one else did. I promise I'll do everything to make amends. Elliot clasped Marcus's hand firmly, seeing sincerity clearly in his friend's steady gaze. You already have, Marcus, Elliot assured warmly. Your courage gave us all strength. Marcus nodded gratefully, departing quietly yet confidently. Elliot turned back to Ash, kneeling beside him, stroking his fur thoughtfully. You did good, Ash, he murmured gently, smiling softly as Ash's tail thumped gently in response. Outside, snow began softly drifting downward, flakes spiraling silently through crisp air, blanketing Cotton Ridge in quiet tranquility. Elliot felt peace settle deep within, stronger and steadier than he'd ever known. Scars remained, memories lingered, but healing had truly begun, not just for Ash, Marcus, or even Elliot, but for the entire community. As Elliot stepped back into the gentle sunlight, Lena and Thomas at his side, Ash limping proudly alongside, he felt gratitude beyond measure. The journey had begun in flames and ashes, but ended in light, hope, and quiet triumph, a testament to forgiveness, courage, and unyielding faith in second chances. Life can leave us scarred, weary, and burdened by past mistakes. But as we've learned from Elliot, Marcus, and the brave heart of Ash, no wound is beyond healing, no past is too heavy to overcome. Sometimes all it takes is a single step toward forgiveness, a quiet act of courage, or reaching out to someone who believes in second chances. Remember, every day is a chance to start anew, to face the ghosts of yesterday with compassion and bravery. Just like Ash taught us, forgiveness is powerful, trust can rebuild, and hope can rise even from the deepest ashes. If this story touched your heart or inspired you, please share it with someone who might need to hear these words today. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts or simply type Amen if you believe in the quiet miracles of forgiveness and redemption. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage, faith, and hope. May God bless you, guide you, and give you strength in every challenge you face. Thank you for being here with us. Comment Amen if you believe.